Hello and welcome to yet another edition of One Take. I'm Pallavi Ghosh. Last week we focused on the External Affairs Minister Jai Shankar and how he has emerged as one of the pillars and faces of this government. This week we are focusing on another man who, because of his job's mandate, has to be low profile and extremely reticent, which he is. But unfortunately for him, because he hates publicity, as he tells us often when he meets us, on those rare occasions when he meets us, it's largely because of the work that he has done. This week our focus is on the National Security Advisor Ajit Doval. Well, most of us have watched Bollywood movies, Hollywood movies, and of course who's missed out on James Bond, the very suave, savvy spy, and the several disguises which James Bond goes through as a spy. And it's something which has enamored many of us, and they have been hugely successful movies. Well, Ajit Doval is actually called the James Bond of India. And there are various reasons for it. It's not that India has a national security advisor or a key spy in its national security setup for the first time. But clearly, Ajit Doval, who's worn many hats, who's actually been involved in many important projects and adventures across political parties and central governments, actually has a special space for himself and the name where he's called the James Bond of India. But before we dissect and discuss the importance of Ajit Doval and why he matters in the scheme of things for this government, where top priority has been placed on national security, our equations with the neighboring countries, and of course the pillar of the formation of the Prime Minister Modi Govt. There are two incidents which come to my mind and anecdotes about him. Now, he's also known as a master of disguise. Look, it's no big thing because spies usually go undercover, they go in as a disguise because that's a mandate of their job. But Ajit Doval, who is an army officer's son, he comes in from Uttarakhand, a very devout Hindu, and someone who religiously every year performs on Navratras, and he carries on all the rituals which are associated with the Durga Puja or the Navratris in Uttarakhand. But apart from his religious feelings, what he considers to be his true religion is national security. But before we discuss him further, let's talk about those two anecdotes I know about. One, and both of them I would find very interesting. You know, someone like him was posted in Pakistan, and for 7 to 8 years he was undercover as a Muslim. Because that was a mandate when he wanted to find out the intelligence quotient of Pakistan, what was going on behind the scenes, and what is it that the Pakistanis were plotting against India and many other countries in the world. So the anecdote is that he, of course, dressed up like a Muslim. He would go to mosques so that, no one could guess that he was not a Muslim. But one day when he was coming out of a mosque, he was accosted by a man who told him that, listen, you are a Hindu. And while Ajit Doval kept on arguing with him, that's not true. Look, I've gone to a mosque. I am a Kattar Muslim. I am a devout one. And it's wrong of you to say so. You're factually wrong. But this discussion and debate went on for a very long time. And ultimately, Ajit Doval stopped to speak to the man. And the man said, you have your ears pierced. Muslims don't do that. A Hindu does that. Ajit Doval went in for a plastic surgery. He realized that this was one lacuna which could actually expose him. He had got his ears pierced because that was a childhood kind of a tradition, and therefore he had followed it. In Uttarakhand, those who understand, in Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh, in many of these Pahari areas is actually a part of the childbirth and also the growing up process. So he went in for a plastic surgery so that his bluff could not be called. And that was one lesson he learned, and he was narrating this incident to us. In fact, one of the few gatherings we had with him, where he said, I realized that these little things matter. A spy can be perfect, but it's that one little mistake which actually could expose you. Another important incident. Remember, after the Operation Blue Star post 1984 riots in Delhi, there was an influx of those Khalistani terrorists in the Golden Temple. They, of course, wanted their revenge. There was a huge spike in the number of Khalistanis in Golden Temple, and that is when Ajit Doval was once again dispatched over there. But could anyone recognize him? Absolutely not. Those were not really the days of, say, the social media or TV, but of course people would recognize possibly an Ajit Doval, or even the security setup over there would recognize him, but they did not. But guess why? That is because he lived over there for many days as a rickshawala, and as a rickshawala, he would keep on going inside the Golden Temple, find out what was going on, and this is what he would report to his bosses, the inside story, the number of Khalistanis there, what weapons they were carrying, what was their strategy, because he was that rickshawala who was low profile, reticent in one corner. He was almost like a fly on the wall. No one even bothered about who he was, but he's the one who gathered all the information which came in very, very handy at the then central government. But the story does not stop here. What we were also told is one of the suggestions which he gave, which was also implemented to all those who were taking a Reiki of Golden Temple, was that people who are incommunicado, people who are low profile, should go there and relieve themselves. As in, they should urinate, they should defecate over there. And the reason and his argument and suggestion, reason behind that was that it would throw up such a stink that it would be very difficult for the Khalistanis to keep on taking shelter at the Golden Temple. These are two incidents, but there are so many others. He may be known recently, and we're going to talk about that on the Balakot airstrikes and the operation strikes. But more than that, he's been associated with India's most successful stories of diplomacy, of national security, and strategic successes. So whether it was the negotiations on the Kandahar, the hostage crisis, whether it was, of course, as we talked about, Operation Blue Star, the post situation after that, whether it was on Pakistan, whether it was on negotiations in the insurgency in Northeast, Ajit Doval has seen them all. But the man who is believed to be low profile, who has a constant smile on his face, yet his expressions never reveal what he is thinking, what he is planning to do, is actually best known for India's retaliation to Pakistan's attacks on us. The India strikes, the Balakot air strikes, the India's so-called revenge against Pakistan. The mastermind was Ajit Doval. Now, to go back to why Ajit Doval was chosen by the Prime Minister for what he has emerged to be. Look, one of the main placards of the Modi government when they first came to power in 2019, and also when the Prime Minister, then the Chief Minister of Gujarat, was actually negotiating and campaigning, one of the biggest criticisms he did of the UPA was the fact that it was a weak government. Dr. Manmohan Singh, according to him, did not have a strong diplomatic policy, did not have a strong foreign policy, which is why, to use the words of Narendra Modi, the Dr. Manmohan Singh government or the UPA government was extremely weak. And therefore, one of the hallmarks, and there were two main hallmarks or electoral slogans of the BJP at that point of time in 2019, was of course corruption, promising a clean government, because remember, UPA was snowed under various scams. But the other big electoral slogan was that of national security. So the Prime Minister knew that he would have to have a setup, a national security setup, which would talk tough, which would send out a message that this government means business. We want to have good equations with our neighbors, but in an absolutely no-touch zone when it comes to any terror activities coming in from Pakistan. And therefore, while he chose Amit Shah as a Home Minister, who again is, of course, we all know, a very stern minister, not mincing his words. He's actually very blunt, very brazen, and speaks it out very, very openly, even to his officers. Ajit Doval was chosen as a national security advisor and someone who had a completely free hand and the eyes and ears of the Prime Minister. Of course, this gave rise to a lot of speculation, a lot of discussion and debate on were there multiple power centers. Was Ajit Doval a power unto himself, and was he drawing his power only from the Prime Minister and reporting only to the Prime Minister, and could this give a rise to a friction between him and the Home Minister? Because the natural corollary and the procedure is that the NSA reports to the Home Minister. Absolutely not. The Prime Minister did give a free hand to Ajit Doval, but on those many occasions which Ajit Doval would go out, reach out to the people, because that also became a part of his mandate, it was believed to be under directions or suggestions coming in from the Home Minister Amit Shah. For example, recently last year, the Delhi riots, over there he could actually be seen going to the riot-affected areas, hobnobbing with the people over there, the locals, and speaking to them, understanding their problem, and also convincing them that the government was by their side and there would be peace and tranquility soon. It was very clear that it was Amit Shah, the Home Minister, who had actually suggested to Ajit Doval that as a national security advisor, if he goes to that area, he could instill confidence among the locals. If you remember those pictures after abrogation of Article 370. You know, at the local level, it may have invited a lot of rebuke, but when you speak to people there later on, it did instill a lot of confidence as well. And those were the pictures of Ajit Doval in the streets of Srinagar, where most of the shops may have been shut down. And this was post the protest of the abrogation of Article 370, where he was seen having biryani or sharing biryani with many of the locals. That was also a part of the confidence building mechanism of the government, in which Ajit Doval played a very, very key role. I remember the day the Balakot airstrikes actually happened, and it was obviously, for very obvious reason, a very hush-hush operation. He was actually at a public event where I also happened to be there. Many of us journalists were there. We were expecting him to go on stage or to speak, but he refused to do so. In fact, he did not even sit on the front row. He said, let the politicians be there. Main piche baithunga. The Prime Minister was expected to come for that event as well. Suddenly, in the midst of that event, he gets up and rushes out. We asked him, what happened, sir? He says, no, there's some calm aa gaya. There's something important meeting which has come up. Next day, when we opened the papers and we watched the television channels, we saw that India had successfully done those airstrikes. Well, Ajit Doval was the man behind it. But the part of Ajit Doval is that he's considered to be one of the most shrewd national security advisors. Someone who is an ace spy. And because of the huge experience he's had, whether it's in the Middle East, whether it's in Pakistan, because of his postings there, within America, he understands the mind of other spies, of other countries which play trump, which harm or endanger India's national security. And therefore, he's a treasure which the Indian government certainly looks at. But spies are supposed to be undercover. Spies are supposed to be low profile, which Ajit Doval is certainly is. Yes, he does speak in public meetings, in events which take place, and he narrates many incidents of what he has learned on the job, how he learned what he learned as the son of an army officer, someone who was brought up in Rajasthan, but someone who's from Uttarakhand by birth and by his family. He's also known to be a very deep family man, someone who's very fond of landscaping and gardening, and he certainly landscaped India's national security setup. He's, as I said earlier, a devout Hindu. I remember some of us at times in the earlier days would be invited to his house during the Navratras, where he actually would talk to us about Durga Stuti, he would talk about the Navratras, and he would talk with us so candidly, so openly. It was very difficult to believe that here was the NSA sitting in front of you, and he was an ace spy as well. As I said, he's also supposed to be a deep family man. And I remember, before I wind up and get in your reactions, one occasion where I remember I was at a small, low-profile restaurant where normally not many high-profile people would go. And there was a little enclosure, but suddenly it was completely shut out and people were asked to move away from there. I just stepped out for a bit and I saw the huge commandos, Delhi police officials, and a huge security setup, and I was wondering, who is it? And who guessed walked in? It was Ajit Doval. There was a family dinner, some birthday party which was taking place, and the first thing he tells the staff was, please open up this space. I'm here to protect the people over here, not to be protected. That's what Ajit Doval is all about. And that, many believe, is his USP. He's low profile, a man who knows his job, who doesn't mince his words, and he enjoys the complete confidence of the Prime Minister and, of course, the Home Minister. So that's the question we're asking is, that has Ajit Doval added on to the pillar of democracy in our country, the pillar of the national security monolith which the Prime Minister Modi's government is trying to set up and has set up also. Do give in your reactions on the social media timeline, and thank you so much for watching.